And so yet another installment into the hidden history of the African-American fighting man. You know him as Jackie Roosevelt Robinson. I've shared with you the fact that Jackie Roosevelt Robinson was in the 761st Tank Battalion, right there at Fort Hood. And ladies and gentlemen, it was there that everything changed for Jack Roosevelt Robinson, the athlete from UCLA. You see, he was drafted into the United States military, joined the Army, and ultimately ended up in the tank battalion, whereby he didn't know how he ended up there because he didn't know how to drive tanks. Well, he became a commander, to say the least, and was very honest with his men when he said, look, I don't know how to drive this thing. Y'all need to show me. And he became a pretty good commander as a result of that tank command, platoon, pardon me. And it's so good, in fact, that his commanding officer, Officer Bates, took a liking to him. Here's what you didn't know. Jackie Roosevelt Robinson had what was called, what would they call this? The golden wound, or golden ticket. What it was during World War II, if you had some kind of injury, some injuries, resulted in your actually being allowed out of the military or out of combat. And he had an injury like that. He had an ankle injury. His injury was so bad, in fact, that it would have exempted him from going off to war. Simultaneously, the 761st Tank Battalion were waiting to go off to war, and they got their orders to go to France. Now, you got to understand, the 761st Tank Battalion, the Black Panthers, was the one tank battalion that stayed in combat longer than any other tank battalion in the history of this country, especially during World War II. So, did Jackie Robinson go? No, he did not go. However, what you didn't know was that although Jackie Robinson could have gotten out of the military, he chose to stay in. His commander, Lieutenant Bates, came to him and said, look, you could, actually, Jackie Robinson became a lieutenant, pardon me, and his commander, Colonel Bates, came to him and said, look, you can get out of this thing if you like. And Jackie Robinson said no, and simultaneously the 761st Tank Battalion were getting all together and getting ready to ship over to France, and then something happened. He caught a bus from the hospital, but he was in the hospital because of his ankle. So he caught a bus from the hospital and got on the bus, and of course, needless to say, there were segregated buses then. But on base, the military indicated to the buses that they would not be segregated. However, some bus drivers didn't like that, and they still tried to promote the segregated buses. Well, needless to say, Jackie Robinson got on the bus and sat next to a very fair-complexioned African-American woman. The bus began to fill up with Caucasians, and one of those individuals said, hey, Jackie, one of the Caucasians said to the bus driver, look, there's a Negro sitting back there with a white woman. And the bus driver stopped and came back and said some choice words to Jackie Robinson, and Jackie Robinson told him he had better continue driving the bus, and went to another stop or two, and then there came the MPs, and the MPs were very gracious, escorted Lieutenant Robinson off the bus. And that's when things went south. He got with some commanding officers there who were of the Southern persuasion, and they began to explain the whole concept of redneckdom. He was referred to with the N-word on several occasions, to which Jackie did not appreciate that. Long story short, he ended up being court-martialed, and many of the charges were thrown out. Like, for instance, sitting in the wrong place, and much of what happened on the bus was thrown out because Jackie was right when he said, look, we on patient. Had to sit behind.
Acquitted of all charges.
There you go. With the exception of this, The one charge that was hanging over his head was whether or not he was ugly, acted insubordinate to a commanding officer. The commanding officer who was handling the court martial there at the brig when he was first taken down there, and the officer had referred to Jackie, according to Jackie, as the N-word, but the officer said that he did not. So Jackie had a lawyer that was pretty sharp. Let's see, where is this? Let's see, here it is, right here. And let's see, this officer, Robinson's attorney, wanted to get all the charges dropped and exonerate one Jackie Robinson, but there was a guy. Let's see, where is he? Oh, there was Private Mucklerth, Mucklerth. He testified that he heard Jackie Robinson saying some pretty choice words to the commander there. Yeah, he said that he heard Jackie Robinson complain to the commanding officer. The commanding officer was asked, well, did you refer to Jackie Robinson as a nigger? The officer said no. To which the private was sitting there in the presence of the officer. The private was asked, did you hear the commanding officer call Jackie the N-word? And the private said, well, no. I didn't hear the commander call Jackie that at all. And so then Jackie Robinson's lawyer asked then the private, okay, well, tell me what happened then. Did you ever use the word? Did he ever use the word? No, I didn't. So why don't you tell the jury what you did hear Jackie say to him? I heard Jackie say, if you call me a nigger again, I'm going to break you in two. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you got to understand what just happened. So the private just told the jury that that's what Jackie said back to the commander. What do you think the jury believed?
Jackie.
Absolutely. The jury found Jackie Robinson not guilty because of the private saying that that's what Jackie said back to the commanding officer, implying that the commanding officer had already called him that. So there you have it. So those are the things you didn't know. But by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Jackie was not allowed to go overseas with the 761st Tank Battalion. He went back to the 785th and got out of the military, joined the Monarchs, and ultimately the Dodgers. There you have it. All right, let's get into this, folks. A lot going on. You know, I'm so sick and tired of what is happening here. There's just such an anarchy going on in our country as it applies to the White House. Even you guys who support the president, surely we've never seen it this ragged. I mean, it just seems like nothing's sacred anymore. It just seems like the president, the whole dignity of the presidency has been trashed, bro.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
It really has, and maybe save it for another day. I mean, I know the WikiLeaks thing with Butthead, Donald Jr. Plot thickens. Jeff Sessions now is appearing before a subcommittee here on the Russia again. He was there with Papadopoulos. He had indicated he had not heard anybody dealing with Russia. It's just... And then for those of you who think, you know, that Hillary Clinton is still running for office, what is wrong with you? Are you crazy? Do you realize the election is over? Will someone go and tell Hannity and Limbubba that... But you see, that is their strategy. Their strategy is the only counterbalance they have to what is happening with Donald John is Hillary. When you, the American people, know that the election's over, go ahead, prosecute her. It doesn't exonerate your boy. I mean, it's just so. It's just you guys look so ridiculous. Oh yeah, well, and Hillary and the uranium deal. There's no there. I can tell you that right now. There's 21 agencies that had to evaluate this entire thing before the deal even happened. 21 folks had to write off on this before it got to the Secretary of State. If there was a there, trust me, I would have no problems. I don't owe Hillary a thing. But you guys are really looking very, very stupid here. Instead of taking, get this, instead of taking the nationalist view, the patriotic view and defending your country, you listen to Russia radio. I mean, it's just so, and how do you explain this to them?
You can't, because it goes against everything they believe. Their deep moral conviction.
Hillary, Bill, whatever it is, take them to the woodshed for the umpteenth time. It doesn't matter to me. But please don't leave me in this position with a president who is a Manchurian. I mean, it is crystal clear to me now. You see, yesterday I had suggested, someone had called and said, oh yeah, well, Russia wants to come in and take over in this big military thing. We've gone beyond, in our world, we've gone beyond the scope of having military interventions, world wars and the like. Oh, you'll have the little petty conflicts with Iran or Syria or the like. You'll have some civil wars, proxy wars. But let me just tell you what I see here with the chess pieces stacked the way they are. Russia doesn't want to invade and tear up the United States. And the United States, conversely, doesn't want to do the same thing with Russia. See, what they want to do is develop worldwide business. And with the advent of the computer, now they see it crystal clear. I see it. In other words, you don't have to control a country. You have to control their commodities, their commerce. Money talks. Huge money now is talking a whole lot more. It is so crystal clear to me. The whole advent, war, the nuclear intervention is the last thing you want to do. You want to maintain some semblance of strength, to say the least. But this whole idea of conventional warfare and the landing in and all, that's just bull. It really is, folks. Bull in the sense of when you have intercontinental ballistic missiles, you realize, you ask yourself, what kind of world will be left to govern? And so the concept of mutual annihilation is not attractive, especially for those individuals who, like Vladimir Putin, and now Donald John, his pet, Poodle. There's a thought of being able to control how commerce happens. And that's what I see lined up here. For the person who's thinking, oh, yeah, you think Russia's going to come in now? Look, folks, I think it would take a whole lot for that. Do I think it's possible? Yeah, given North Korea. If, in fact, we were to become the offenders in the North Korean conflict and destabilize that area, then, of course, China would certainly have something to say about it. But before China would be Russia, because Russia is more of an ally to Jong-un than the Z. Is it Z or Z, the Prime Minister of China? But the point is, it causes conflict, and the Iraqi conflict, the Syrian conflict, has demonstrated that anytime you have that now in today's modern world, it adversely affects everybody, especially those in business. It really does. The commonality between Donald John and Vladimir Putin is not nationalism, it is plutocracy. That's what the Kremlin is. It's all about power based upon wealth. And what Vladimir wants to do is be the adversary in the sense of being able to influence how the United States does business and to bring about the demolition of the United States, not by way of war, but by way of secession, literally. Just as what happened to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, that's what it stands for. just as the Soviet Union became divided, the United States can become divided. Don't think it's not a possibility. And no, I'm not going back to the Civil War. It becomes an economic decision.
No. This is more akin to the Cold War. So what you're saying is that possibly Putin would employ a strategy to recreate what happened to the USSR.
He's doing it. He's already doing it. We're overstretched with military intervention, just as they were in both Georgia and the Soviet Union and Afghanistan. We stretched them out, caused the ruble to fall and topple, and that's where our dollar is headed. That with this whole tax cut and hope for the fireside economics, the trickle-down theory, it's crystal clear to me. Is it a prediction? Yeah. I see that it's stacked up. Right now, Russia has become almost independent. I don't know if you guys realize that. Their imports are few and far between. It used to be a time right here in good old Mississippi, in Gulfport, Mississippi, there was something called the meat boat. There was a chicken boat that would be loaded to the hilts heading to Russia. You guys probably don't remember that. Some of you guys in the IRA know what I'm talking about. And there was dissension, should I say, between Russia and the United States, and Russia decided to get its chickens elsewhere. Well, they've never come back. They have enough oil reserves. They're not dependent upon anybody. They're supplying oil and gas to the Europeans. I mean, really got them by the pinatas, if you get my drift. And it is the largest. Folks, let me just tell you, and they're doing something else. They are now developing thermonuclear energy, the likes of which we don't see. And by the way, there's a house north of, north of 20, or somewhere in mid-central. I'm not gonna. There are folks that I know of who have thermal energy, geothermal energy, and it's an incredible thing how this all works. It's a very natural kind of situation, and they're doing it now. Many of us think that the I guess the tundra part, when you get up around Siberia and you have the ice and all of that, that Russia is just this very bleak-looking country, and it's guys, and it's just not even inhabitable. Well, think again. Now with global warming, things are changing in Russia. I.e., the North Pole is starting to melt, and that's why the base is being built there. And that, combined with the fact that it's more self-contained and not having to import many of their goods, that makes for a very good and strong country, I don't mind telling you. So now that combined with the major base in the North Pole and their guy in the White House wanting to cut deals, that combined with the fact that he's now calling for a tax plan that will give the richest of the rich the greatest tax cut they've ever had. Now, when that happens, again, you realize that's taking money out of the coffers to pay bills. You guys understand do you guys get this? You don't get this.
You just lost me.
All right, so you're working, right? You're working every day, and you've got bills. You've got a budget. You got things you got to pay for. So if by chance I say to you, well, I'm going to lay you off, you still have those bills.
Right.
You're not making the money to pay the bills. You might think once you're laid off, then you can work on the side and make up for that. Yeah, I can make more money on the side for myself. Now that's a come. That's like, I'll cut the taxes, and then big business is going to come in and create more jobs and make more money. Right? But you still have that budget. You still have the bills that's going to come in. You got to pay your rent. You got to pay your light bills. But your money, your revenue has now been cut in half. That's what we're talking about when you have a deficit. In other words, you've got bills. They cut the taxes, right? Particularly on the 1%, significant taxes, and you still have those bills. Well, the hope is that, they'll come in and generate some revenue, and, oh boy, we're back in the race again. Well, I want you to know we've gone through at least 3 presidents who had that fireside economic model, and it just didn't work. I'm just going to tell you that. That combined with something else, and you need to hear this. Where is this? I know I clipped it out here. The CBO has reported that this month, here it is right here. Take a listen to this. So we have a budget. We cut the taxes. That means that we can't pay the budget. So now we have deficit. That's why we've been borrowing money here in my great country. The federal government began its new budget year, it starts in October, with an October deficit of $63.2 billion. Now what that means is, the deficit means is that we're starting off in debt. In other words, we have a budget. And we've not taken in enough money to pay the budget, which means we have a budget deficit. Are you got a confused look on your face? You okay?
Yeah, when you throw these words around.
Okay, I'm sorry. You see.
Macroeconomics, what am I thinking?
Well, it's really not. If you're working in a church, right? Well, listen. If you're making $100, if you're making $100 a day, and your bills is based on you making $100 a day, but you get cut in half to $50 a day, you have a deficit in bills.
Gotcha.
Your bills were set up so that you had to make $100 a day. You're not making it. You're making half of that, which means now you have a budget deficit. You can't pay your bills. You got to get another job, raise some taxes, or I'll go borrow some money. And in my great country, we borrow money, which is why we have the debt we have now. So the federal government just released this year's budget deficit, and it's $63.2 billion, up sharply from a year ago when President Barack Obama was in office, when the budget deficit was cut 4 to 5 years in a row. Pretty significant coming out of recession. The Treasury Department said Monday the October deficit was 37.9% higher than the $45.8 billion deficit recorded October 2016. I'm reading it. Both government receipts and spending were up for the month. Now, what do you think increased all this spending? Give you one guess. The guy in the White House. No, it wasn't Obamacare. I can tell you that right now. Both were up for the month. Receipts did climb 14.3% to $235 billion. That's a record for a month. So there was some intake, but there was huge spending. The largest spending figures was up 11.6% to $298.6 billion. Now, what does this say? Without going into great details, without boring you, ladies and gentlemen. What we're dealing with is a president who is dealing not just in American currency, but in rubles. The way I see this, if I were Putin, what I'd like to do is drive the strength of the dollar down. And how do you do that? You do that by making your country more dependent. And not just on oil, on everything. You know, when I was in London in 2016, I'm going to tell you something. I was shocked when I found out that the British import all of their fruits and vegetables. I didn't know that. And that was one of the advantages of being with the euro. Not anymore. I don't know what they're going to do about it now. What's going to happen is the price of that's going to go up, and the imports are going to. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Because of the Brexit thing?
Yeah. And America has become more dependent as opposed to Russia. So, where are you headed, Rip? So for you guys who are thinking something, I know, there's going to be the nukes are going to start to fall now. Oh, the Russians are going to come now. What they want to do is influence us, become the dominant influence in the world by controlling our commerce and forcing the dollar down to the point whereby even Texas is want to secede. It might be better to break up the states just to survive, and we have a confederation like the Confederation during the 13 colonies. Still have a relationship, not unlike Mother Russia and its confederation. Got me? But when you do that, you stop being a United States. And I think that could be the target. I have been asking all the time, well, what is his target? Why did he want Donald John in office? You know, because I was thinking, too, militarily, what he wants to do is come in and the boots will be marching down Pennsylvania Avenue, but that's not it. What he wants is a very, very productive America, and he realizes that that would be a very costly thing. Even conventionally, there's more guns in America than in Russia. And I'm not talking about sitting somewhere in a ammunition dump. I'm talking about in every household. You don't want that fight. Doesn't want to destroy it. Just want to control the money. And when you have a willing participant like the Manchurian president we currently have, I see it. He would just simply want to have his fiefdom. What would you like? What would you like, Donald John? Just give me America. That's all I want. America, maybe part of South America, too. I could get a little bit of Africa if you got some. This is scary stuff. But it's not out of the question, in my view now. For people who are more committed to a Machiavellian concept, being the thief, you know, the king again. All right, so there you have it. Is it crystal clear to you? Can you see it?
Yeah, I get it now.
You get it?
I think I get it. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, once the dollar is driven down and the ruble is propped up, trust me on it, not propped up, it becomes more valuable because of the fact that the debt in Mother Russia is not like the debt in good old USA. We have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. All right, folks, she was, I want to go ahead and play her. I know we don't have much time. I want to do it only because I had you guys serve as a jury. This poor lady, I listened to her. I wondered why she was reading. I didn't see many tears, but there was a whole lot of, mucus around the nose, and it was obvious she was being very genuine. Yet the fifth accuser of Roy Moore, Beverly Young Nelson. I mean, for her to come on television and do this in front of her kids and grandkids and the like, let me just tell you, I don't know anyone. You couldn't pay someone enough to do this. And it's not like any charges filed. It's just that as a result of other ladies, she didn't feel alone. So she wanted to tell her story of what happened to her that infamous night when the former DA walked in and felt that he could do whatever he wanted with his 16-year-old girl. Here she is.
My name is Beverly Young Nelson. I was born on November 14th, 1961 in Santa Maria, California. My husband John and I have been married for 13 years.
Congratulations.
He has taken time off from work as a truck driver to be here with me today, and I thank him for that. When I was 15 years old, I began working after school. I was attending Gadsden High School. I worked at the old Hickory House, which was on East Meagan Boulevard, off of Highway 431 in Gadsden. I worked there after school as a waitress. Some nights I worked until 7 p.m. and other nights until 10 p.m. Mr. Roy Moore was a regular customer. He came in almost every night, and he would stay until closing time. He sat at the counter in the same seat night after night. And I remember exactly where he sat.
He's that guy.
Mr.
All right, I want you to hold this. Hold this. Hold this. You know, she was reading her own narrative, and it was so vivid. Have you known people like that, guys like that?
Oh, yeah.
Sit in that same seat at the end of the bar?
Sickos. Weirdos.
Just kind of drink the same thing. Got to have it in the right succession.
And only get that one thing. You know, want a can of hash, a cup of coffee. You know?
I want a half-filled, lukewarm glass of water and black coffee with the cubes on the side. Don't put them in it. If you put the cubes in my coffee, I don't want the coffee.
I don't want the dishing cubes. I want the cubes on the side, and use your hands. Don't use those tongs.
reach down there in the back and get me that one of those plates from, you know, the ones, I like the pretty plates at the very bottom there. Yeah,
reach down there, yeah. No, at the very bottom.
Yeah,
They're warmer down there. Go ahead.
Oh, this one's dirty. You might need to get another one. Can you look down there again and get me?
Reach down there, yeah. You might have to bend down. At the bottom, that's usually the cleanest. Go on now. Get that for me. That's right.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, what have we come to now? Man, we got sleazes. And it didn't just start, folks. It really didn't. I guess they were outed when Bill Clinton was in the White House. What, does that surprise you? It shouldn't. Although it was consenting adults, it kind of, I mean, it's just... It was beneath the dignity of the office and being a gentleman. And he's right. He did it for the worst possible reasons, just because he could, used his power. You know, and thereafter, ladies and gentlemen, the swamp was being drained by little boys and little girls, interns. It's just not completely drained. And can you believe we really would elect another one? Can you believe that?
I can.
Hang on 2 cents. You're next. We'll be back.
I'm a veteran. We hit a mine in Vietnam. When I came home,